I find the study of diet, food, and nutrition to be interesting, but truthfully disturbing. When you begin to look at what we eat in this country, there are numerous books that talk about the American diet. There's movies, probably more than a few of you have seen Food Inc. That's one of those movies that when you watch it, it can't help but leave an impression on you and begin to think about what you and your family are consuming, and frankly just the entire industrial complex that surrounds the supply of food in our nation. There are books like Omnivore's Dilemma by Michael Pollan, where it traces the origins of food and how it gets to your table, and you begin to learn about genetically modified food and how pervasive it is in our society. Tomatoland by Barry Estabrook is a book that it really draws a lot of attention to fresh fruits and fresh vegetables. In this particular case, it's a outline and a study of the tomato industry, and it goes into some detail. If you look at fresh tomatoes that are grown during the wintertime in Florida, which is an enormous business, there's some $5 billion worth of fresh tomatoes that come out of Florida during the wintertime each year in our country. If you look at those fruits, they're far different than the tomatoes that were grown 25 or 30 years ago. They have far less vitamin A or calcium or niacin or other nutrients, yet they have some 14 times more sodium in them than they did 25 or 30 years ago. And they're grown to be perfect. And when I say perfect, I mean that they are perfect in shape and size and color. If there's any kind of off-coloring whatsoever, they're thrown out, and they're actually designed to be harvested when they're hard and they're green, so they survive transportation perfectly, and then they're gassed along the way so that when they arrive to you in the store, they've got this perfect red-orange hue. Yet those tomatoes, most of us would agree, taste far different. They don't taste nearly as good as something that you might find at your local farmer's market, which is probably grown in a much more smaller agricultural environment, or even the tomatoes that you grow in your own backyard if you're using an heirloom tomato seed or something like that. When you begin to look at tomatoes, what you realize is this really applies across the board. And so what we have access to, what's available to us, and what we're told is good is often far different than what it really should be. And for myself, I found that disturbing. I've used the term Franken supplements because supplements, unfortunately, follow the same patterns. And so now we've got Franken foods that we have access to every day, and then we try to make up that difference between what we're eating, the nutrition we're getting, and what we should be getting, and we wind up taking Franken supplements. And it's really a cycle that doesn't promote good health. And a lot of people are spending a lot of money and not being served in the way that they want to. And so for myself, and I think for many others, because you begin to look around and you see more and more restaurants that talk about using locally grown ingredients to prepare the foods, fresh ingredients to prepare the foods. You begin to look at concepts like slow food movements, which works hard to make sure it's things that are grown locally and regionally. A lot of us have begun to say that a lot of things are acceptable until we stop accepting them, borrowing a phrase from the civil rights movements in the 1960s in this country. And so for myself, Touchstone, which is much more than just a business enterprise, it's something personal. It's a chance for us to go out there and answer those issues and say, you know what? It's no longer acceptable to me that the ingredients that I find in my products come out of a lab instead of a garden. There's a difference. There's a difference for my health and the health of my family. And that in large part is the drive and the motivation behind what we do with the products that we sell.